You ever get that feeling like life's about to slap you across the face, but you can't tell from which direction? That was me, Raymond Blake, on a Tuesday night, standing in front of my closet, trying to pick a tie for a dinner I didn't even want to attend. See, my wife, Clarissa, had invited someone over. Said it was a surprise. Just dress nice, babe, she said, with that voice she used when she wanted to distract me from asking too many questions. Suspicious? A little. But we'd been married 11 years. At some point, you stop jumping at shadows. Or, like me, you convince yourself to stop. I wore the blue tie she liked. The one she said brought out the color in my eyes, which was funny, considering she hadn't really looked into my eyes in months. Anyway, 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rings. Clarissa answers it before I can even put down my glass. I hear a laugh. Her laugh. The one she used to reserve for vacation cocktails and anniversary nights. That laugh. Then comes the voice. Deep. Confident. Male. Hey, gorgeous. Hope I'm not too early. And just like that, I knew this dinner wasn't going to be about food. I stepped into the foyer, and there he was. Tall, sharp jaw, navy blazer, and the kind of cologne that says, I get promoted because people are afraid to question me. His smile was practiced, like it had been delivered in boardrooms, hotel lobbies, and, more recently, my wife's text messages. Clarissa turned to me like she was introducing a new rescue puppy. Ray, this is Julian. He's from work. I've told you about him. Told me about him? Sure. The Julian who gets all the accounts. The Julian who's just so ambitious. Julian, apparently, who's now in my foyer, calling my wife gorgeous. I stuck out my hand. He took it. Firm grip. Fake warmth. A handshake with hidden motives. Pleasure, man. Clarissa's talked a lot about you. I smiled, the kind of smile you wear when your instincts are screaming, but your brain's still waiting for confirmation. Funny. She's never mentioned dinner plans. Clarissa shot me a look. The kind that says, not now. That look used to work. Used to. We sat down to eat. Wine flowed like a bribe. Julian complimented her cooking. She giggled. Actually giggled. I watched. I didn't speak much. Didn't need to. See, silence makes people nervous. It reveals things. Like the way Clarissa touched her necklace every time he spoke. Or the way Julian used we when talking about the office. Or the casual bomb he dropped halfway through the risotto. So, Clarissa and I will be in Denver next week for the big launch. You should come, man. Make a trip of it. Clarissa choked on her wine. Just for a second. I raised an eyebrow. Denver. She dabbed her lips with a napkin. It came up last minute. Must have. Funny, I don't remember hearing about it before the risotto. Julian chuckled. She's probably waiting to surprise you. I turned my eyes on him. Calm. Steady. She's full of surprises. He paused, just briefly. His smile faltered, a hairline fracture only I seemed to notice. I was beginning to enjoy myself. You ever watch two people flirt so openly you start to wonder if you accidentally turned invisible? That was me the next morning. Clarissa was at the kitchen island, phone in one hand, coffee in the other, smiling down at her screen like it was telling her the funniest joke in the world. I didn't have to ask who she was texting. I already knew. Julian, with his expensive watch and his smug little smirk. Denver, huh? I said, leaning against the counter. Her phone almost slipped out of her hand. Oh, Ray, I was going to tell you. Were you? Before or after you landed? She sighed, that exaggerated, world-weary sigh women practice in the mirror. It's just work. A few days. You know how these launches are. I nodded slowly, sipping my coffee. Of course. And Julian will be there. Her eyes flicked up. Just a fraction. He's part of the project team. Don't start. Start what? I didn't say anything. I smiled. You did. She bristled. God. Ray, not everything is about your paranoia. I almost laughed. Paranoia. That's the word people use when they hope you'll doubt your own eyes. But me? I don't do doubt. I do evidence. So that night, while she was in the shower humming some tune she hadn't hummed around me in years, I did what any rational husband would do. I checked her laptop. And there it was. A neat little folder labeled Q4. How professional. Inside, screenshots, receipts, hotel confirmations. 2 names, 1 suite. I stared at the screen, not angry, just calm. The kind of calm that means you've already stepped 1 foot outside the marriage without moving an inch. When she came out, towel wrapped around her, she kissed my cheek like she always did. Habit. Obligation. Not love. Don't wait up when I'm in Denver, she said lightly, pretending not to notice the laptop now closed on the table. I smiled back. I won't. And I meant it. Because while she was planning Denver, I was already planning something else. The thing about being underestimated is, it's the perfect cover. Clarissa thought she was slick, booking a flight to Denver under the guise of business. Problem was, she wasn't the only one who knew how to make reservations. I bought a ticket on the same plane. Different row. Window seat. She didn't even notice me bored. She was too busy laughing at something Julian said in the aisle. Her hand brushed his arm like it belonged there. Mine stayed calmly on the armrest. Funny thing about airplanes. Everybody's trapped in a flying metal tube with nowhere to hide. I sat 2 rows back, sunglasses on, pretending to scroll through emails while quietly enjoying the free theater. Halfway through the flight, Julian leaned over to her. So you think he suspects? Her laugh was soft. Ray? No. He's clueless. He's comfortable. Comfortable. The word stung, not because it was true, but because it used to be a compliment. I took out my phone, snapped a quick photo. Clarissa, leaning on Julian's shoulder. Her ring still on, glinting under the cabin lights. Evidence. When we landed, I didn't follow them right away. I had other plans. Checked into a different hotel across the street from theirs. The sweet confirmation on her laptop told me exactly where they'd be. Room 1214. King bed. Balcony. Nice view. That night, while they ordered champagne and laughed about how Ray wouldn't suspect a thing, I set up a little insurance. A discreet contact of mine, guy owed me a favor, delivered a small black box to the hotel staff. Nothing sinister. Just a motion-triggered camera cleverly disguised as a room gift. Call it a wedding present. For their marriage, not mine. Back in my own room, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and waited. And sure enough, the first alert pinged before midnight. I didn't even have to open the footage. The notification preview alone was enough. Julian. Shirtless. Clarissa. Smiling. I saved the clip, tucked the phone away, and leaned back in the chair. No rage. No heartbreak. Just one steady thought pulsing in my head. Perfect. Now I don't have to guess anymore. There's a certain peace that comes with knowing the truth. Not suspecting. Not wondering. Knowing. For months, I'd felt like a detective without a case file. Half clues. Odd behaviors. The kind of shifts you tell yourself are in your head because the alternative is admitting you married someone who stopped choosing you. But now, I had the whole case, and the culprit was on camera, laughing in a hotel robe with a man who called me buddy over dinner. And let me tell you, nothing makes a man more dangerous than clarity. The next morning, I dressed like I was on business too. Slacks, collared shirt, messenger bag. I even bought a $4 black coffee from the lobby to complete the look. I timed it perfectly. 8:15 a.m., right when Clarissa and Julian would head down for their conference. There they were, striding out of the elevator like a couple straight out of a corporate retreat brochure. Julian had his blazer slung casually over one arm. Clarissa wore a dress I hadn't seen before. Short, red, not the kind you wear to a marketing seminar. She laughed at something he whispered, her hand brushing his chest like she owned him. I stepped in behind them at the revolving door. Clarissa glanced back, eyes sweeping past me without recognition. That's the thing about people who think you're predictable. They don't see you when you stop playing the role they assigned. They slid into a black town car waiting at the curb. I snapped a photo from across the street, then another of the license plate. Insurance. Not because I wanted to confront her yet. No, not even close. Confrontation gives them room to deny. And I wasn't about to hand her an escape hatch. Instead, I went back up to my room, logged into the camera feed from last night, and downloaded the clips. Clean, clear, undeniable. Each one stamped with the hotel's date and time. Now, some men might have packed their bags right then, stormed into that conference center, and dragged her out by the arm. Not me. I've never been a sprinter. I'm a marathon man. Patience is the cruelest weapon in the world, and Clarissa had just given me a reason to wield it. That afternoon, while she was busy networking, I made a few calls. First, to our joint financial advisor. I told him Clarissa and I were considering dividing some assets for estate planning reasons. He perked right up, probably thought it was about taxes. By the end of the call, I'd quietly shifted the bulk of our liquid funds into an account under my name only. Legal, since it was structured through a trust she'd never bothered reading the fine print on. She always called that stuff boring. Turns out boring saves you when your wife is planning a life with someone else. Second, I reached out to an old college buddy, Greg. Greg's an attorney now, specializes in divorce law. The kind of guy who can smell a false alibi from 2 states away. I didn't tell him everything, just enough for him to know I needed documents ready to roll the second I gave the word. He understood. Old friends don't need much detail. By 6 p.m., I was sitting at the hotel bar across from theirs, swirling a glass of scotch and watching the door. Right on schedule, Clarissa and Julian walked in, still glowing from their little charade. They didn't notice me. Why would they? I wasn't supposed to be there. They sat, ordered a bottle of champagne, bold choice for 2 coworkers, and clinked glasses. She leaned in, laughing. He kissed her hand. And just when I thought the scene couldn't get any more absurd, she pulled out her phone and snapped a selfie of them together. A secret one. The kind of photo she'd later send to her best friend with the caption, "Finally happy." I nearly laughed into my drink. Finally happy. She hadn't even finished the champagne. When they left, I followed at a distance. Not enough to spook them, just enough to see which way they turned. Straight back to the hotel. I gave them 5 minutes before heading up myself. The elevator dinged at floor 12, and I stopped in the hallway, just far enough to hear Clarissa's laugh behind the door of room 1214. And that's when I slid the envelope under the door. Inside were 3 things. A printed photo of them from the plane. A still frame from the camera feed. Clarissa in that robe, leaning on Julian's chest. A handwritten note in my steady script. "Enjoy Denver." It's on me. I didn't knock. Didn't wait. I just slid it under and walked away. Now, you might think I was giving myself up too early. But here's the trick. I signed nothing. Left no name. No confrontation. Just evidence that someone was watching. Because if there's one thing I know about Clarissa, it's that she hates being out of control. And nothing rattles a person like realizing the walls have eyes. Back in my room, I poured another drink and waited. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, I got a text. From her. "Ray, are you in Denver?" I stared at the screen, let the 3 dots dance while she waited for my reply. Then I set the phone down without answering. Because silence, my friends, is louder than any accusation. An hour later, another message. "We need to talk. Please don't do anything rash." Rash. She thought I was angry. She thought she could still steer this. What she didn't realize yet was that the storm she was bracing for had already passed. The calm she mistook for weakness was me sharpening every blade I planned to use. I turned off the phone, leaned back, and smiled. Clarissa wasn't going to sleep a wink that night. And for once, I didn't have to lose any. By morning, she'd be second-guessing every move, wondering what I knew, who I'd told, and how much of her little fantasy life had already slipped through my fingers. And that was just the first trap. You can tell a lot about a person by how they react when they think they're losing control. Some scream, some beg, some go quiet. Clarissa? She scrambled. The morning after I slid the envelope under her hotel room door, she was a storm wrapped in silk. At 7:18 a.m., I watched her exit the building from the lobby across the street. Hair pulled into a tight bun, sunglasses too big for her face, phone glued to her ear like it was a lifeline. I didn't need to hear the conversation. I could see the pace of her steps, the anxious way she looked around like betrayal might be hiding behind a parked car. Julian came out minutes later, noticeably alone, scanning the sidewalk with that same arrogant squint. He had that "I can fix this" face. Probably told her to calm down, that whoever sent the photos was bluffing. He didn't know me. Not really. They say revenge is best served cold. I say it's best served slowly, methodically, with a garnish of paranoia. That day, I didn't text her, didn't reply to her 4 messages or 2 missed calls. I wanted her stewing, guessing. The worst thing for someone like Clarissa, someone who built her life on curated appearances, is ambiguity. She needed to know who knew. How much? When the other shoe would drop. She didn't realize the other shoe had already landed. See, back home, the dominoes were already falling. That same morning, a thick envelope arrived at her office, addressed to Mrs. Clarissa Blake. Inside, copies of the hotel footage, the Denver itinerary with both their names on it. And the best part, a copy of our prenup with the clause she never remembered signing. The clause I added at the last minute. The one her lawyer called harmless standard language. Infidelity equals forfeiture. She cheats. She walks away with nothing. It was always theoretical, until it wasn't. I knew she'd see the envelope. I also knew she'd call me before noon. 11:42 a.m., right on cue. I picked up. "Ray," she exhaled. Not angry, not sweet, just tired, like someone who just realized they'd been playing chess against the wrong opponent. "Clarissa," I said evenly. There was silence. Then, "I got something this morning." "Yeah, you sent it." I sipped my coffee. "Did I? You think I'm stupid?" I smiled. "No, I think you're finally paying attention." Another pause. Her voice dipped lower. "Can we talk? Please. When we're back in town." I gave it 3 beats before responding. "Sure." She exhaled, almost relieved. That's what killed me. Even now, she thought she had room to maneuver. I ended the call before she could say anything else. One word. Sure. Let her try to decode it. Let her think I might still be reachable. Forgivable. Back at the office, I'd already handed off the financials to Greg, my lawyer. He had a manila folder labeled Plan A and another labeled Plan B. I didn't tell him which one to use yet. But that afternoon, I added one more instruction. Let her make the first move. Clarissa arrived home the next evening, 2 days earlier than planned. Alone. I was already gone. She found the house quiet. My things removed, carefully, not angrily. My office empty. My closet half-gutted. The house still smelled like me, but the essence was missing. Like a ghost had moved out and taken the warmth with him. She called. I didn't answer. She texted. "You're overreacting. We can fix this." Julian meant nothing. It was a mistake. That one made me laugh. A mistake doesn't book 2 tickets, 1 bed, and 3 nights of room service. A mistake doesn't plan an affair with matching lanyards and shared calendar invites. I didn't reply. The next morning, she did the unthinkable. She showed up at my office. Now, Clarissa hates scenes. She avoids confrontation unless she's rehearsed for it. So when she walked into the lobby looking like a woman who hadn't slept, I knew she was breaking. I met her in a conference room, glass walls and all. My assistant offered coffee. She declined. I accepted. She sat down across from me, wearing an expression I hadn't seen in years, sincere regret. Almost believable. "I deserve that," she said. "I deserve all of this." "I know that." I nodded. "You do." She swallowed. I was lost. I thought maybe I needed something more. But Julian wasn't. He isn't, you know? "Right," I said calmly. "He isn't me." "No," she whispered. "He's not." And for a second, just one, I saw the girl I used to love. The one who made pancakes at midnight and danced barefoot in our kitchen. But then she said something that flipped the switch back. "If this goes public, Ray, we both lose. Your reputation, my career, our families. Maybe we can just separate quietly?" I walk away with a few things. We keep it civil. Oh, there it was. She wasn't trying to save the marriage. She was trying to negotiate her way out with dignity and designer luggage. I leaned forward. "Clarissa, I already spoke to my attorney. You're entitled to exactly what the prenup outlines." She blinked. "You wouldn't." "I'm not doing anything." "You did." "I'm just finishing the paperwork." Her eyes hardened. "You're really going to throw it all away over one mistake?" I smiled. "No. I'm throwing it away because it wasn't one. It was the 5th thing I forgave. The 3rd time you stayed late at work. The 2nd hotel receipt I found. And the 1st time I decided I was worth more than this." She sat there, stunned. Not angry. Just realizing, finally, that she didn't know me as well as she thought. I stood. "Don't worry. You'll land on your feet. You always do." I walked out. She didn't follow. That night, Clarissa called Julian. I know, because I still had access to the cloud account tied to her phone. I saw the texts, heard the voicemail. She told him it was over, that I'd burned the bridge, that she needed space. Julian replied with a single line. "Good luck. You're on your own now." Just like that. No defense. No fight. Just a quiet exit. The kind predators make when they realize their prey turned out to be the hunter. Clarissa had officially run out of lifelines. And me? I was just getting started. There's something liberating about being underestimated. Clarissa had always treated me like I was stable, predictable, a man who could be counted on to do the safe thing. And for years, she was right. I worked hard, paid the bills, took the dog to the vet, sent anniversary flowers, even when she forgot ours. But once she made me the fool, once she chose secrets over sincerity, something cracked open in me. Not rage, not despair, something colder, something calculated. And now, it was my turn. The first thing I did was visit her office. I know. That sounds dramatic. But I didn't show up with a scene in mind. I showed up with a delivery. A courier walked into her marketing firm's lobby at 9:01 a.m. sharp, carrying a simple manila envelope addressed to Clarissa Blake, VP of Strategy. Inside, a personalized resignation letter. Not hers, Julian's. I'd done some digging. Turned out Julian had a few skeletons of his own. A prior consulting gig that was actually a non-disclosed relationship with a client's married executive. A quiet settlement. A non-compete violation that mysteriously disappeared. All it took was a polite conversation with a retired HR director and a few screenshots from Julian's past LinkedIn endorsements that contradicted the timeline. I sent it all anonymously to the firm's board of directors, with a note. Might want to look into your rising star before the media does. Julian was escorted out of the building 2 days later. His desk cleared. His badge deactivated. His name vanished from the website by the end of the week. Clarissa never mentioned it. Not in texts. Not in calls. But I could tell by the silence that it rattled her. I imagined she stared at her phone, wondering if I had anything to do with it. Spoiler alert, I did. Next, I called Elaine. Elaine is Clarissa's mother. A Southern woman with a steel spine and a taste for brutal honesty served alongside sweet tea. Clarissa used to call her too involved. I always called her my secret weapon. When Elaine picked up, she sounded surprised. Raymond? Well, isn't this a nice surprise? I didn't waste time. Thought you deserved to know why Clarissa and I are divorcing. There was a pause. Oh, she's been unfaithful. For a while. I've got proof. Names, dates, hotel invoices, the works. Elaine was quiet for a long moment. Then, I always told her she had a good man. I guess she thought the grass was greener. She didn't realize I was the one watering it. Elaine exhaled. Send me the documents. I want to see them for myself. I did. The next day, Clarissa called me. You told my mother? Her voice was sharp, brittle. You left me no choice. She's threatening to remove me from the family trust. That's between you and your conscience, I said. Not my business anymore. You're ruining me, Ray. No, I said, calm as ever. You ruined us. I'm just taking back the wreckage you left behind. Click. I wasn't done. I had one last card to play, and it had been sitting quietly in my drawer for months. A short story I wrote a year ago for a local publications fiction contest. It was about a man whose wife betrayed him with her colleague. A fictionalized version of me, of course, but with details only the real Clarissa would recognize. The story didn't win, but the editor reached out, said she liked the voice, asked if I ever thought about writing a column. I called her back. Still looking for contributors? Absolutely. Got something in mind. Yeah, a 10-part series, based on a true story. Names changed, of course. I'll call it The Exit Interview. She loved it. By the end of the week, the first article was up. It didn't mention Clarissa by name, but if you knew the players, you knew the game. And suddenly, I wasn't just the man she betrayed. I was the man telling the story. Publicly. With grace. With wit. And with just enough sting to make her wonder what was coming next. The column picked up steam. Shares, comments, local buzz. Strangers reached out. Men saying, I went through the same thing. Women saying, you're brave for not going full scorched earth. Some people even started guessing who Clara was. Clarissa never said a word about it, but her best friend unfollowed her on Instagram. Her stylist canceled their standing appointment. Her gym trainer stopped replying. Reputation, after all, is a quiet currency. One night, about a month after Denver, she sent me a long email. Subject line, please read. In it, she said she was sorry. Not just, I made a mistake, sorry, but a full-blown confessional. She talked about feeling overlooked, feeling numb, feeling like she was chasing a version of herself that didn't exist anymore. She said she missed me, that she'd trade everything to go back to who we used to be. I read it twice, then closed the tab. There was nothing left to say. Funny thing is, people expected me to be broken. They expected anger, revenge, destruction. But I didn't want destruction. I wanted freedom. Freedom from pretending. Freedom from wondering when the other shoe would drop. Freedom from loving someone who looked me in the eye and chose someone else. And the more I built my new life, the less I thought about hers. One day, I ran into Julian. Not on purpose, just fate being its usual ironic self. He was at a gas station, wearing sunglasses, unshaven, standing beside a car that looked least beyond his means. He saw me and froze, then tried a smirk. Ray, man, no hard feelings, right? I looked him in the eye and said, none at all. And I meant it. Because he didn't steal my wife. He set me free from her. People talk about heartbreak like it's a collapse. Mine was more like a renovation. Sure, there was dust. A few loud crashes. But under it all, I started building something better. After the column caught fire, I got offers. A podcast guest spot. A short book deal. Even a speaking invitation at a relationship therapist's event titled, "When the One Turns Out to Be a Stranger." I declined that last one. Not because I was bitter. I just wasn't interested in being anyone's emotional exhibit. Meanwhile, Clarissa's world continued to shrink. Not publicly. She still had her job, for now. Still smiled in social media posts like nothing had happened, but privately, people knew. The ones who mattered? They stopped calling. Turns out, being the architect of your own downfall doesn't come with much applause. And then, just when I thought things had settled into a peaceful aftermath, she made one last move. She filed her version of divorce papers. A copy showed up at my lawyer's office. Clarissa had the audacity to include a clause requesting partial spousal support. Support. From the man she lied to. Cheated on. Humiliated. Greg, my lawyer, called me with a rare pause in his voice. She's either bold or delusional. I'd say both, I replied. So I did what I do best. I got ahead of her. That week, I scheduled a private lunch. Not with Clarissa, with her firm's new regional partner. Why? Because I remembered something Julian once said, back when we all still pretended we were friends. He mentioned the new partner was a big fan of clean reputations and tight NDAs. I showed up with a folder, a polite attitude, and a single sentence. I have no interest in revenge. I just think leadership should know what's on the record before it ends up in the wrong inbox. I didn't threaten. I didn't demand. I just handed over a copy of my anonymous tip from months ago. Only this time, it had dates, email threads, and screenshots that proved Clarissa and Julian's relationship had begun before he joined the company. A policy violation, according to their handbook. It wasn't illegal, but it was messy. And in corporate environments, messy is fatal. The partner nodded. Quietly. Thanked me. That was all. Clarissa called 3 days later. Her voice cracked. They're letting me go. I didn't say a word. She continued. They said it was part of restructuring, but I know what it is. Still silent. I'm sorry, Ray. I really am. I finally spoke. You're not sorry I found out. You're sorry I didn't fall apart. Click. I signed the divorce papers, but not hers. Greg drafted a counterset. Clean. Efficient. Brutal in the way a contract can be when it tells the absolute truth. No alimony. No assets. No second chances. Just a final page with her name and a blank line beside it. I left it on the porch of the rental she was living in, inside a neat little envelope with a note attached. You once said Julian made you feel alive. I hope he still does. I no longer need to. She signed. I know because the copy came back 2 days later. No note, no lipstick stain, no argument. Just her signature, scrawled faster than it took her to destroy our marriage. I filed it the next morning. And just like that, Clarissa Blake was a chapter closed. You want a twist? Here it is. I never deleted the camera footage. Not because I wanted to punish her. Not because I needed it anymore. I kept it because, years from now, when I'm standing at the altar again, if I ever choose to, I want to remember exactly what it felt like to be lied to with that much confidence. That much ease. That much cruelty. Because that will remind me to listen harder. To look closer. To love with my eyes open. But the real twist? A month after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from a woman named Hannah. She'd been one of the readers of my column. Said she related. Her husband had done the same thing to her a few years back. We got coffee. Just coffee. But she listened. She laughed. Not the forced kind people do when they're trying too hard, but the kind that makes you feel like a person again. And when I told her the whole story, I expected pity. You know what she said? Well, damn. She really picked the wrong man to play games with. We laughed for 5 minutes. That night, I walked home alone. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt clean. So, no, I didn't break her. I didn't need to. She did that all on her own. Me? I just made sure she couldn't rebuild from the rubble she created with my tools.